Hi. I'm going to do a really brief presentation on sugar syrups. This is from a PowerPoint that I gave out in class, and also it's on Canvas, I think week 7. What you should do is either read the hard copy as I'm talking or open up, if you can, the PowerPoint that's on Canvas, but just kind of follow along. It's only 2 pages long. Let's see. Let me go to the first page. And this is basically, I want you to know the difference between corn syrups and high fructose corn syrup. These terms are used a lot in nutrition, so you ought to know something about them. Let me just say this. Corn syrup comes from corn. Okay, it's a mixture of carbohydrates that include glucose and also some slightly larger chain carbohydrates. It results from the hydrolysis of cornstarch. So what you basically do is you collect the cornstarch and then you hydrolyze it. Now remember, the composition of starch. Starch is basically just big long molecules of a bunch of glucose units hooked together. A bunch of glucose hooked together makes starch. If you hydrolyze it, you get glucose and some other small sugar compounds. So you take your cornstarch that you collected from the corn, and you hydrolyze it with acid, maybe some heat, and maybe use some enzymes. Okay. What you wind up with is a lot of glucose in a kind of a thin, liquidy material. You can probably call this natural, maybe, depending on how you make it. And then what you do is you take this thin, liquidy material that's got a lot of glucose in it now, and you want to concentrate it down so it becomes a syrup. So basically what you want to do is you want to take something that maybe, and I'm going to make this up, maybe after you hydrolyze it, let's say it's 15 bricks. Again, I'm making this up. You're going to concentrate it to about 60 or 70 bricks to make it kind of syrupy. It makes it more stable in terms of microbiology. And the way you concentrate it is to you evaporate the water off under a vacuum. And we talked about this in class. If you boil something under a vacuum, where you have basically low atmospheric pressure, it will boil, the water will boil off at a lower temperature. And that maintains the quality of the ingredient. Okay? And what you wind up with is a syrup that's maybe 60, 70 bricks, something like that. Decent microbial stability, decent quality because you evaporated off the water, okay, to make it into a syrup using a vacuum. And you have something that's basically easy to pump. In the old days, they would add, if you were making a batch of a product, you might add sucrose, dry sucrose powder to the batch. Well, if you're making big batches, that can become a real pain. So corn syrups are just a nice way to have something that's very sweet and pumpable that you can send over to the blend kettle, that you can pump to the blend kettle rather than opening up bags of dry sucrose, table sugar, and dumping it in. So now you know what corn syrup is. High fructose corn syrup is just a little different. Okay. In order to make high fructose corn syrup, you're going to start out with hydrolyzed cornstarch. You're going to start out basically with corn syrup. Okay? And then you're going to take an enzyme called isomerase. And isomerase will convert some of the glucose in the corn syrup into fructose. So some of the glucose gets converted into fructose through the use of this enzyme. And we know that the relative sweetness of the fructose is sweeter than that of the glucose. So what you wind up with is you wind up with something that's sweeter. You have corn syrup, it's got a lot of glucose in it. Add an enzyme, isomerase, and the glucose, some of it gets converted into fructose, which is sweeter than glucose. So you wind up with something that's sweeter than you started with. You concentrate it to about 77 degrees Brix. Okay, it starts out as basically in some ways like a thinner solution, and you want to concentrate it more. So you want to concentrate it up to about 77 degrees Brix. It's pretty thick. but it's flowable so that you can pump it. You still can pump it. And the very high brick, 77, that's a pretty good Brix, pretty high. Provides really good microbial stability. You can leave it out. I have some here at home that's been there for 2-3 years and nothing will grow in it. So what you have now with this high fructose corn syrup is it's sweet, it's pumpable, it's cheap to manufacture, the price is cheap, you can pump it, it's easier to use than dry sucrose. But there is some controversy as to whether it's natural or not, and that has to do with one of the steps in the manufacture that uses a metal catalyst. Most people in the food industry will not consider it natural. So that's number one. Some people may argue that it is, but generally people will say no, it's probably not natural. And also because you have a lot of glucose in it and you have a lot of fructose in it, these are reducing sugars. And we talked about this in class a little bit. It can cause a lot of browning. If you replace sucrose in certain products like cakes with high fructose corn syrup, because there's a lot of reducing sugars in there, the glucose and the fructose, you can get a lot of extra browning going on, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. And that's it. Very short. Make sure that you watch this video. If you have any trouble opening it, and you shouldn't from home, you should be able to open this from home. If you have trouble, call the IT department, call the help desk. That's it.